Hello and welcome to the Social World podcast. I'm Dave Niven and it's always good to be with you. Now, today I'm going to talk to a man at the top of the tree, the Minister of State of the Department for Education, responsible for children and families. That's Robert Goodwill MP. And I'm going to just try and get a sense of what he sees in terms of the landscape of changes that are going on at the moment. There's the new Social Work and Children Act, there's the changes in structure to local safeguarding children boards, there's the new regulations for social workers being actually assessed, and there's a whole change of structure within the working together document that's going to be finally published after consultation in a couple of months' time. So I thought we'd start and talk to him. Now, as well as everything else, I've got to say a very happy holiday to everybody. Good Christmas, New Year. It's been quite a year. I haven't done as many podcasts, I don't think, as I'd have liked to have done. But then again, the day job sometimes gets in the way. But I really appreciate your listening. I really would appreciate you pushing it further out. I don't make any money out of this podcast. This is just for my and everybody else's enjoyment. So please pass it on, tell people about it, give me more ideas, as you always do, for people you'd like to hear about or hear interviewed, or items that you'd like me to put on it, and I'll keep reaching out to other podcasters and other people within our world, social work, social care, and sort of child protection, and try and give you as much as I can. So I wish you a very, very happy Christmas and a very good New Year, and we'll have a look at Robert and listen to Robert Goodwill today. My thanks again to Alba Digital Media for the technical help, and as always, you can come back, leave messages, email me at media@socialworldpodcast.com or at Dave Niven on Twitter. So keep it going, keep it coming, keep supporting, and I'll try and do my best for you. Thanks. I'm joined today by Robert Goodwill, who was the Minister of State at the Department for Education, and he's been in post since June this year. Welcome to the programme.
Yes, thank you very much indeed for having me on.
Now, 6 months into the post, and a huge range of responsibilities. Now, I know you're politically experienced. I know you were an MEP. I know you had various other government positions, but this, by the look of it, was a reasonably new landscape for you. Was that fair? And how are you feeling about it so far?
Well, I'm sort of new to getting sort of dropped in the deep end in a new landscape, because my previous job was as immigration minister. I'd not been involved with that before. And as so often after a reshuffle, it means there's a fairly steep learning curve, getting to know some of the issues and getting to know some of the people very well. But I hope I built myself a reputation as a safe pair of hands, having dealt with Heathrow Runway 3, High Speed 2, and then going on to do immigration. So I hope that I can bring my experience here. And of course, what's the great thing about the British political system is that we've got civil servants who are professionals. They're not political appointees. And so I've got great backup from not only the professionals within the department, but also going out into local government, particularly talking to social workers. There's a tremendous load of expertise there. So, we don't sort of need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the stuff that's been in train is already there for us to build on.
Right. Now, the Social Work England is going to become the bespoke regulatory body for social workers in England. But just some of my colleagues were asking the question about the new position of the chair of the board or the chief executive, and in neither of their job descriptions did it actually specify that they had to be either a social worker or a registered social worker or have extensive social work expertise. Is that the case? Was it deliberate, or was it just an oversight, do you think?
No, it was absolutely intentional. We want to open up the field as wide as possible to applicants. And obviously the skills of the chief executive and the chair will be different skills. And it may be that somebody will bring forward a lot of experience from another area. But I think at least one of them should have social work experience to bring that to there. So we are very keen to see a wide range of applicants, and I hope that when the chair and the chief exec are appointed, people will sort of think, yes, that's just the person we need to run this new organisation.
Okay, right. Well, in the light of just carrying on with that subject for a second, the new National Assessment and Accreditation System. Now, there was some acceptance by your predecessor, Tim Lawton, about the fact that it could be seen in the whole proof of concept evaluation that there might be a bias against some older or black and ethnic minority social workers, and he was actually going to cause that to be looked into. Has that come across your desk yet at all?
Well, I don't think the assessment and accreditation would be a system that would discriminate against anybody. I mean, the whole point of this is to have a system where we can assess the skills of social workers, and having been in a number of boroughs and counties around the country, I've seen some great social work being delivered by people of all, both genders and different ethnic backgrounds. So I really don't think that's something that I'm preoccupied about, because I think we are very much within the social work sector, not an area where there is examples of discrimination that would really need to be addressed. I think we've got the UK is I think a great country where we really don't get too hung up about race and ethnicity and gender and sexuality, and I think that's one of the great things about our country. And I think the system we're putting in place is one that will be looking at people's skills and their ability. And I think that's we've got people from all ethnic backgrounds with great skills and great ability, and I look forward to them excelling in the testing that's going to be done, so that they can be assessed and given that additional, I think, feeling of professionalism. But I will ensure that the system there is fair. And of course, we're now moving into the first phase. I was up in Leeds earlier this week talking to social workers there, and I've got to say they're up for it. They really see this as a great opportunity, and many of the concerns that people had about the way the assessment will be carried out, I think, have been allayed. And we will learn from the initial phases, the first phase with a small number of authorities, moving on to a larger cohort. And I think that will give us a good opportunity to make sure the system is fair, and it does actually identify the real skill that is out there in the social work profession. Right.
Well, I mean, it sounds very much, Robert, like it's not obviously something that's crossed your desk in any kind of major way, and you explained what your thoughts are on that, but I presume it would be something you'd keep your eye on.
Yes, I mean, if there was any suggestion, the questions would be ones that would be likely to be select against one particular ethnic group, then we would certainly look at those. But this is not an area where I've picked up any real discrimination on the basis of anything. I mean, social workers are the most diverse group of people I've come across, and they bring different skills to their job. And indeed, it can often be that a person from the same ethnic group can be able to work even more effectively with children in need of their own group, whether that be because of cultural or even language skills that they may have.
Okay, thanks. Now, I want to ask you, if I can, Robert, about the abolishment of local children's safeguarding boards and the replacement of other safeguarding arrangements in each local authority that the Act has brought, and Alan Wood's report kind of triggered. It's just that at the moment it seems, and I was talking to colleagues, and I wonder what you thought about this, is that it's fairly loose as far as we can see about what each local authority does, provided that the one or two things such as serious case reviews, etc., and the new panel for that, the new national panel, and also the child death overview panel is now moving over to the Department of Health. But apart from that, it seems that of the 153 boards that are essentially having their statutory nature taken away, that it could end up with about 103 slightly different arrangements up and down the country. Now, would you think that is preferable to a kind of a more unified approach, or I mean, was that the intention, or what do you think about that?
Well, I think different areas have different problems and different local needs, so I don't think there's anything wrong at all in allowing the local people to themselves tailor what they're doing to what their particular circumstances are. I mean, I think what is really important is that these reviews very quickly enable us to learn lessons where things may have gone wrong. I mean, the problem, a serious case review takes 15 months to produce, and lessons so far after the event tend to have little impact. So there's little point in more and more serious case reviews being produced if they're not answering the right questions, and there's little or no learning results. So I think moving to the more localised solution for many cases, I think, will be great. And indeed, I hope that these different boards learn from each other. And if good practice is shared, then that's a great opportunity. But it was a deliberate move by the government to ensure that that we can actually tailor what is needed in different areas to their real challenges.
Okay, now thanks. The flexibility of it I get. At the moment, there's independent scrutiny through the position of the chair of these boards, and that's something, as you know, that I'm involved with myself. And in future, the working together guidelines talk about leadership from, if you like, the triumvirate, the police, the health, and the local authority, but also a need for independent scrutiny. Were you still thinking about, as it were, the situation of the chairs, as it were, fulfilling that role still? Because I believe many of my colleagues in authorities up and down the country are just maintaining the status quo. And is that something that you probably had in mind?
Well, I think where there are good people chairing these boards, then I wouldn't want to lose their expertise. And it's up to each board to decide how to carry out its particular roles. And also, I think in different areas, it will also depend whether health, police, or social work have the biggest sort of part to play in making sure that where we need to learn lessons, those lessons are fully acted upon. So I think it was a deliberate policy to ensure that local people can make those decisions to actually make sure that they have the best solution in their own area. Okay.
Now, the funding... Sorry?
I know you do great work, chairing the local safeguarding children boards in 2 local authorities, Tameside and Bradford. So, you'll know more about this than most people. The challenges in different parts of the country are very different. And it's important that's reflected in the way that these boards operate.
Yeah. No, I take your point on that. And I think, essentially the whole thing is about partnership, isn't it? And it's a question about how you actually choreograph that partnership locally. And to get the best for the particular area. I think we're in agreement about that one. One thing about the boards, though, is interesting from the new working together guidelines, and that's about the financing of the boards. At the moment, the guidance coming out suggests that there should be what's, quote, fair and equitable, proportionate, and equitable partnership between the 3 principals. Now, at the moment, all over the country, the actual cash police contribution is very, very much smaller than the other 2 principal leaders in this. Had you that in mind when the working together guidance went out?
Well, I think the first point to be made is that the multi-agency reforms are cost neutral, as funding for multi-agency working remains an issue for local determination, and the changes impose any additional burdens locally. But it's still out and not yet set in stone. But the funding should be proportionate and sufficient from each partner to meet local needs. And I think that will mean some shift from a disproportionate cost, which is currently taken by local authorities. Okay.
Well, obviously, what you're saying, if I can read it, Robert, is you're actually saying, look, there's local negotiations to be had here. Is that the sort of a good bottom line for that?
Yeah. I think these things need to be determined locally in the same way that as I said about the chair and the way these boards are going to work. It's all about making sure that fits your local situation. And, I think in the past we've had far too much of central government dictating what's good for people in different parts of the country, and the challenges in a rural part of Cumbria will be very different to challenges maybe in a central London borough.
Yeah. Point taken. Now, of course, over the years, and you'll have had this in politics, more times than you've probably had hot dinners, with people saying to you, well, why do we need this change? Why do we need more of this change? Is it just change for change's sake, etc., etc.? Could you just outline for a bit about why you think that these new arrangements will make children safer?
Well, you're absolutely got to the key of it. We need to make a system that does allow children to be safer. And as I mentioned already, sometimes the the process for serious case reviews was a very long-winded process, and indeed I think it would have been irresponsible for children's services in a particular area to do nothing and wait until that serious case review came out. So often it was sort of hopefully they'd got the stable door shut well and truly before those lessons came through. But I think the imperative of the change we're bringing in is to ensure that lessons are learnt more quickly and we have better multi-agency working, including the way that the information's shared between these agencies. I've had one or two cases where we've had serious case reviews where there hasn't been good information sharing, and that's, I think, part of one of the lessons that we've learned, how we need to move forward to make sure that information is shared. Sometimes even within a health trust, where we had a case I saw recently where a child had been admitted to accident emergency at 3 separate A&E units, but there was no communication between those, and the red lights didn't start to flash as they should have done because that information wasn't shared properly. So this is about simplifying the existing statutory framework around multi-agency working and removing bureaucracy and placing the key safeguarding agencies, that's the police, health and local authority, into positions of leadership and accountability in the areas. And I really believe that this is going to be much better locally at enabling lessons to be learned and action to be taken more quickly to ensure that children are safer.
Okay, the last couple of questions then, if I could please. It seems a little bit ironic to some people that, speaking from the Department for Education, the role of education in safeguarding was hardly ever recognised in Alan Wood's report and in subsequent rearranging of the structures. Is there anything you'd like to say about that? Because obviously education play a massive part currently in safeguarding boards, but yet they don't seem to have had, at least on paper, recognition within these new arrangements.
Well, I hope that schools will be represented on some of these panels, but it's not actually mandatory. Indeed, schools play a very important part, both in identifying neglect and abuse. And indeed, I've been to 2 MASH operations in local authorities where information was coming in from schools, and the schools are often the best point of contact with a child, whether that be through things that the child says or indeed evidence of abuse there. So I think it's very important, and also that because schools have a very important part to play in terms of the education that children get, and some of the work, for example, at the NSPCC does in schools to ensure that children are aware of the sort of risks that there may be. And it's we've moved on a lot from the old days of stranger danger. There are an awful lot of problems, peer-on-peer abuse, other types of internet-based issues where children can be at risk. So I think it's important that we do enable schools to continue to play their part. But the core of players in this are the police, the health authorities, and the local authorities themselves.
Okay. One of the unfortunate things that you'll see as a consequence at the moment going on is whilst all these changes are being mooted and discussed and consulted on, there still is the kind of consequences, if you like, of the whole the austerity program, austerity measures. And I know myself for a fact of many, many, many authorities where hundreds of people are being made redundant simply for the fact that budgets have been cut right back to the bone. And therefore public services are as thin, if you like, as they ever have been. Is there an end to this in your judgment coming up? Because an awful lot of people do seem to say that the people are suffering more and more, and people are becoming much poorer and much more disillusioned. I mean, would you give people hope that there's an end to this?
Well, in terms of people having hope as working in the British economy, we've never had more jobs in the British economy. And yes, we have seen a move in the centre of gravity between people working for the state to people working in private enterprise. But if you look at schools funding in this department, we've had protection for the funding per pupil. The Secretary of State managed to get another £1.3 billion to go into ensuring that whilst we introduced the new national funding formula, we ensure that the losers that would have lost under that formula don't lose in funding per student. And in terms of social work, I mean, our problem at the moment is about recruiting good social workers. We have a lot of vacancies around the country, and social workers do not have trouble finding funding. Now, that said, we do get, we have sort of fairly blunt conversation with local authorities. We know there are some strains and stresses on the system. We certainly make sure that those are passed through. But what is interesting, actually, as I also go around the country, is how some of the innovations that are being developed, some of as a result of our £200 million innovation fund, some as a result of the work that's starting to be done at the What Works Centre, some of the innovations are actually producing better results more cheaply. To give one example, the Pause programme, where mothers who repeatedly get pregnant and repeatedly have taken their children into care, breaking that sort of vicious circle is a programme that for every pound invested yields £5 in saving. And other systems that we've seen, the No Wrong Door system in North Yorkshire, which is being shared around the country, those are examples of innovation where good social work can be delivered at less cost. And indeed, it's often the effective children's social care departments that are actually making the right decisions first time, and not necessarily sort of having expensive repeat interventions, which in the end up not serving the best interests of the child, and also not serving the best interests of the local or national taxpayer.
Is that the kind of, you're really talking about the kind of the landscape of early help? Would I be right in thinking that?
Yes, it's about ensuring that decisions are made right first time. And, what is one of the slightly disappointing parts of this job is that whilst we're seeing, 94% of nurseries being good or outstanding, 1.9 million more children in good or outstanding schools than in 2010, we still see children's services departments in local authorities having problems with Ofsted, requiring improvement or being inadequate. And that is a constant battle for this department, working with local authorities, whether that's through some of the trusts that have been set up around the country or partners in practice, to ensure that we get the very best children's social care delivered. And that isn't necessarily something down to cost. Some of the good interventions are actually, the most cost-effective interventions, which are better for children. So I want to see, I've got a map on the wall in my office with various boroughs and counties coloured in different colours, and at the moment there's too much red on there, and there's some local authorities which I know are working very hard to get back up to a good or even outstanding level. So it's not just about how much you spend, it's how effectively it is spent. And there are some local authorities that are spending their money very effectively indeed, and there are others that are spending equivalent amounts of money but not delivering good solutions for children.
Okay. I maybe just ask you then a final one, because I mentioned the early help area because obviously colleagues tell me that a lot of pressure is being felt in that area at the moment, and unfortunately resources seem to be very thin. But I'm listening to your previous answer. Finally, then, look, all the frontline practitioners, whichever discipline they're in, so whether it's social work, police, health, education, voluntary sector, charity work, or even members of the community, because there's an awful lot of belief, of course, that safeguarding is everybody's business. What sort of messages would you give to them at the moment from your position as the senior government minister, in terms of not only the work they do, but the future that they can expect with what you've got your eyes on?
Well, I think what I want to send a clear message is that I want to see a landscape of improvement. I want to see better practice being delivered around the country, and the assessment and accreditation will be part of that. But I think an important part is the leadership that children's social services have, both from a political point of view, but also having good directors of children's services who know how to deliver those good services. And, often it can be a vicious circle. If an authority gets in a bad place, they have trouble with recruitment, they find they have to rely on agency staff, which is more expensive. So I think we have seen tremendous progress, I think, made in the science of delivering good children's social care, the knowing what works better And I think we need to do more in that way to make sure that where we are taking action to protect children, we need to, first of all, ensure that everything we do is in the best interest of the child, but also that what we're doing is an effective use of the resources that we're making available to local authorities to ensure that can happen. And of course, there's other aspects, the work we've done on ensuring better access to early childcare, early years education, making sure that some of the hubs that are being operated, family hubs, are delivering the help to the families that families need at an early stage. But you're absolutely right that early intervention is often the way that problems down the road can be headed off. And of course, we know all too well that the cost of failing a child doesn't just end even when they leave school. Often children who've been in care don't get into employment. Sometimes, sadly, they get involved in the criminal justice system. So, having a good early intervention, making sure a child gets the best solution delivered with good social work, adequately funded, I think that's the way forward. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to get to grips with this new job, this new challenge. And we need to make sure that everybody involved, whether that's police, schools, local children's services, understand that we are there to ensure that they can carry out their job effectively.
Okay. Robert Goodwill, thank you very much indeed for your interview today. And, take care. Thanks again.
Thank you very much indeed, David.